The problem in the short term is the fact that the big crops that we keep hearing about just keep getting bigger. US corn crops in fantastic condition and getting bigger. European corn crops, Black Sea corn crops, they're in fantastic condition and keep getting bigger. The European winter wheat crops that are starting to get harvested now look like they're between say 5 and 15% bigger than estimates. I think the same's true in Russia. The Russian wheat crop estimate now is something like 58 to 60 million tonnes, which if you go back a month ago, people were talking 52, 53 million tonnes. So, and the same could be said here in Australia. Conditions have been quite good across the majority of the growing belt. So I think you've seen people put their forecast for the Australian wheat crop up from 23, 24 million tonnes a month or so ago up to 25 million tonnes now. So unfortunately for the bulls in the market, the big crops just keep getting bigger. How long's a piece of string? I think at the moment the market is factoring in a yield somewhere around the 170 bushels per acre, which obviously would be a record yield if it was to eventuate. But the concern is that this ideal growing season just continues to stretch out. We're now into late July. The bulk of the corn crop is either pollinated or pollinating. It's wet, it's cool. There doesn't seem to be any issues in any great part of the belt. So some people are starting to suggest that the corn yield could get up as high as a 175. And I think at this stage in the season you certainly couldn't say that it won't happen. If that does happen, then you probably can expect to see continued pressure on prices. Certainly initially the market, I guess you'd say, bounced a little bit when that incident happened, and I guess that was some nervous shorts probably taking some risk off the table. I think now that the situation has developed and perhaps calmed down a little bit, it's probably fair to say that the world is realising that the major consumer of Russian crops is not the US and it's not Europe. So politically it's not any of the sensitive parties. It's places like Egypt and Africa, and the crop is grown. The crop is gotten, as I said before, it's gotten a lot bigger. So I think ultimately it's not a bullish factor for the market. I don't think it is. I think just by sheer weight of numbers, just the size of the crops this year, they're enormous, and in many parts of the world you'll be setting records for production. Sure, there might be a higher percentage of feed wheat in some areas. Russia, there's a bit of feed wheat coming out. France is another area that's had some inclement weather recently. But there is going to be more than ample supply of milling wheat. That kind of compounds the bearish tone in corn and barley in other feed grain markets, because you've got a lot of feed wheat trying to force its way into rations right around the world again. Unfortunately, we sort of think that the pressure is still to the downside from here. The crop through central New South Wales is in fantastic condition. As you come north, it does taper off, there's no question about that, but we're still quite confident that the prospects for this year are better than they were last year. It's likely that southern Queensland's crop at this stage is in better nick than it was last year. The upside potential for the market here is not great, and if the crop conditions continue to evolve quite favourably, then I think we just continue to grind lower into harvest. There's still a very, very strong basis or premium for prices here on the east coast of Australia, and as the season develops and production becomes more certain, then I think the market will start to price in exports off the east coast.